Hello and welcome back to another episode of Women Work Your Faith. My name is Sylvia Johnson, and today I will be going over the Sunday School Lesson for Sunday, September the 26th. If this is your first time here, I, along with my friend Kenesha Morris, like to share our testimony. We want to encourage people in their faith through Bible studies, Sunday school lessons, and of course, life application. And we try to keep it pretty real and applicable to today's life. So without further ado, let's get into the lesson. Today's lesson, the subject is wisdom and discernment. Our Bible basis comes from Proverbs, the 25th chapter, verses 1 through 10. Our Bible truth: godly wisdom helps us purify our lives, relationships, and workplaces. The memory verse: debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another. And that is Proverbs, the 25th chapter, the 9th verse, and that's the King James Version. Before we get into the Bible verses, just want to give some context for what we're reading today. The previous few weeks, the lessons have all been focused on wisdom, and that continues right now. And these Proverbs were written by Solomon, who was the last king of the United Kingdom of Israel. Hezekiah came after a long line of, I guess you could say, royalty roller coaster. So Israel and Judah would have good kings, bad kings, not so good kings, horrible kings. And so there was this spiritual roller coaster that took place. And so when Hezekiah came into the throne, he started as a man that followed after God. And so bringing back a lot of the laws that they were supposed to follow, a lot of the wisdom, this is an example. And so this is just another part of what Hezekiah did in trying to restore the kingdom back to God. Another point I want to make is if you're reading the Bible, especially in the King James format, you have a lot of words or grammar that is not commonly used today. And then in the Bible, just throughout, there are a lot of examples of things that we don't do. So we may think, that's not relevant to me. Well, in its literal sense, it may not be, but in the figurative sense, it is. And so that's where we come in as teachers. We are supposed to help people understand and make it applicable so that they can apply it to their life where they are. So I will do my best to continue to do that today as we come across things that may or may not seem familiar. The first verse in this lesson identifies the origin of the text. It tells us that they are Proverbs that King Solomon had written. And then the men of Hezekiah copied them out, right? And so think about that in the context of yourself. Here in America, right? If we found some scrolls, some old historical documents about the history of the nation, maybe some of the original settlers, maybe some Native American artifacts, maybe myself as an African American woman, maybe some historical data or notes or letters written by my ancestors, which of course is very limited, right? What would the value of that be? To have that and to share it with my people. After it establishes the context of where the scripture came from, it talks about the beauty of things and why it's important to discover it out. And it tells us that it's the glory of God to conceal. The glory of God. It is part of what makes him the greatness that he is this mystery of how he runs the universe that we cannot even begin to understand. Right now, where I am, it is raining, and it's been raining for 3 days, How does God make it so that it rains continuously for 3 and more days and we're not flooded, right? That is what it's talking about, the glory of God, that he can do these things and we don't understand how it works. And the rain outside How come all the animals aren't sick and dying or drowning, right? They're out there somewhere living, but the rain has not destroyed them. So God has the world worked out so that it continues, and we haven't discovered that mystery, and that's part of his glory. He also talks about something that's kind of similar to that, but the counter for kings, right? And here, we may not live in a kingdom, but each of us has a ruler or a leader in our life that we are subject to. And it is that leader's responsibility to search out the truth in things. And so he goes on to talk about, the heart of the king is unsearchable. So that leader, we may not understand. Just like I don't understand how it's raining and all the animals are straight outside. We don't understand necessarily how a leader makes a decision and what went behind that decision making. But it's part of their duty to do so. Going back to the honor of the king to search out something, Solomon talks about removing the dross from silver. Now, I'll tell you off top, I have never done welding or casting or any mining or any of that stuff, right? So when I saw the word dross, I went and looked it up, which is what we should do. And when we come across something that we're not familiar with, and I watched a video about what happens in the purification process of metals. And Solomon is telling us that if you take away the dross from silver, there shall come forth a vessel finer. Solomon is telling us that if you remove this impurity, something that comes out is greater than what it was when it was full of that impurity. Which tells me a couple of things. One, Solomon knew what he was talking about, right? So here's the king that understands this dirty and hard and sweaty process of metal refining, right? And so today, leaders don't have nothing to do with that sometimes. We think we're too good to do the dirty work or be familiar with it. But here's the king that understands the mechanics of it, right? So he's not separated from the hard work that takes place in the kingdom so much that he can't understand what's going on. Two, it made me think about a purification process, right? Typically it involves heat or pressure. And in the purification process of that thing, the heat or pressure is so much that it drives something out. And with us, our lives, our workplaces, our relationships, there needs to be a purification process. And that's what Solomon is telling them. If you take away the dross, which is the impurities that come out when it's heated, then what comes from that is greater, it's finer, it's more beautiful, right? Since we're not used to a lot of this imagery and the examples, we haven't really given thought to the impurities in our life. An example that we could apply is, think of a detox. Many of us now, we go on these health food detox and we purge our systems, and it's not a beautiful process. But how do you feel after? Your energy level is up, your skin looks better, your hair is shiny, your breath is better, you're less bloated. That is, again, a purification process. You are driving out the dross, and then what is left in you is much finer. Your relationships in your work, your church, your family are the same way. We need a little detox, okay? Not just of us, but of the toxicity that we allow to exist in our life. And we need to drive those things out. Because think about it. How are those existing impurities hurting you? How are they weighing you down? Because I guarantee you they're stopping you from being productive. Maybe they're dampening your disposition. You're cranky all the time, short with people. Maybe you're not meeting the needs of your family because you've got all this toxicity coming in at you, and it's made you sluggish, unmotivated. So we need to drive it all out. And that's what Solomon was saying. that wickedness, those impurities that exist in our life and in the people around us, if you remove that, what will be left is better. It's that righteousness that you want to exist in your life. In another context, if you work as a leader and you have a lot of impurities in these teams that you manage, the people you supervise on your job, you're gonna have to separate that out. And think about it. When you do that, you are driving out what is naturally in the silver. It's naturally there. Well, in people, it is natural for us to be argumentative or to have a little attitude, or our spirits in our heart. The Bible tells us that our hearts aren't right. And so what Solomon is saying is that we have to drive that out. Get rid of those impurities. And what comes forth from that purification process is much better. It's beautiful. It is worth more than what it was before you had all that yuck in there. So he takes that example of driving out the dross and he relates it back to the kingdom. Take away the wicked from before the king. The wickedness that is in us, it's naturally there. But if you remove it, if you run it through that purification process, what you get left in the kingdom, i.e. your office, your household, your church congregation, your neighborhood, what you will have if you drive out that wickedness will be so much finer. It'll be, and I think the word he uses is righteousness. We want some righteousness. So in this next section, Solomon talks about our conduct in or around leadership. The first issue that he addresses is our ambition. So that is not a bad word, but you need to watch it. We teach people to just drive themselves to the top. You can make it. You can take what you deserve, put yourself in that place, go, 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 go. But he offers a warning, and he tells us not to self-promote. And so what he is saying in this, when he says don't put yourself in the presence of the king, I don't need to be marching up the office and camping outside the CEO's space hoping he recognizes me, trying to get his attention, trying to make myself look better than what I am. I need to be where I'm supposed to be. The interesting thing about this that is emphasized many times in the Bible is that God loves and looks fondly on humility. And when you are trying to gain recognition by putting yourself in the face of the king or the leader, your humility is not what's at work here. It's your pride and your ambition. And you're out of order. And think about it in the terms of church. I'll say it, I've been in church and you see those people that are always trying to get to the mic, always want to be in the pulpit. That's their ambition. That's not their humility that's working there. In fact, it probably seems like they don't have any. We don't want to be that way. And Solomon gives us a warning, because if you do trot yourself up there, right, and you place yourself in this position that you don't have no business being in, it would have been better for you to stay in your place than to be told to go sit down. Think about what that does for your image then, right? Also brings to mind something Jesus said when he was teaching the children of Israel. And he said, but many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. When he was teaching them about the kingdom of heaven, he was letting them know that your perception of what is good and worthy of accolades or recognition is not what God is looking for. I said before that God recognizes humility and meekness and service and kindness. We recognize ambition and drive and force, and we praise that. But what we even now are starting to discover is that that's not what makes someone a great leader. And so Jesus is saying the people here in this world that are first, that are always in charge, that are always in control, that lord over everybody else in the kingdom of heaven, you'll be last. And in God's kingdom, those who are meek in spirit and lowly in heart will be first. And so again, it's that example that Solomon gave. You will be recognized by God and he will say, come up. Okay, so we're getting down to the end, and this next part is about conflict resolution. I'll be honest and say, I didn't learn this well growing up. So it's very important that you study and understand this in the Word. Because the real way to resolve conflict is not the way that we think. Okay, if you're reading in the King James Version, Solomon says, go not forth hastily to strive. So don't be so quick to have an argument or debate or contention with someone, okay? It's not a good thing. We don't need to be so quick to go to battle with someone. And Solomon talks about, because you ain't gonna know what to do when your stuff come out. You ever get into arguments with people and people start kitchen sinking and they go on to get everything but the kitchen sink? You started this fight and now they gonna finish it. And all of a sudden, everything about you is out in the open. And we all have some things about us that we don't want brought up and definitely don't want broadcast and out in the world. But also, we don't know how to make peace. Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Okay, so this person who is quick to argue, that's not a peacemaker. This person that's quick to debate something or to bring somebody to court or to fight. We live in the lawsuit world right now, right? We suing about everything. That's not the way God calls us to be. We're supposed to be peacemakers. Think about it. What are peacemakers? They are the ones that help reconcile. Who was Jesus? The ultimate reconciler, okay? He reconciled all of us. So if we are supposed to be like him, what should we be doing? Should we be fighting and striving and arguing, spreading rumors and all that jazz? No, we're supposed to be reconciling, bringing people back together. As he said, debate the cause with thy neighbor himself. Go to the person that you have an issue with. Go directly to them and don't, it says, discover not a secret to another. I mean, don't go running it to everybody, okay? Don't go telling all the stuff. Go to the person, get it straight, work it out. And he says, lest he that heareth the other people that ain't got no business being in the business, hear what's going on and put you to shame. And now your reputation cannot be brought back. Take consideration about your actions and your impulses and the things. Stop listening to the world. That's what this whole proverb, it says. Solomon says, stop listening to the world, okay? Think about things in a godly wisdom mindset. And let us just thank God for those of us when we didn't have godly wisdom, that someone else had enough godly wisdom to tell us don't do that. It's the bad idea, okay? We need to really reconsider our actions and our decisions and how they work out against us. Okay, so this lesson was a little bit shorter than the previous few lessons. Yay. But it was very on point. And I was really able to see so much of myself in my life in it. So like in our lesson aim says, let's think about what it means to apply this godly wisdom in our relationships with other people. And what can we do to create this harmony that needs to exist? If you enjoyed this lesson, do me a favor and click the subscribe button down below so that you can stay connected with Kenesha and I as we do our weekly posts. Sometimes it is Bible study, sometimes it's Sunday school, and sometimes it is us giving testimonies about encounters that we have in life where we were able to work our faith. Thank you again for joining me. I hope that this was able to help you, and I will see you again soon. God bless.